Welcome to this latest edition of the Ril Dil podcast. I'm your host, Sarico Gerald Quinn, on this 12th of July, 2022. Hope everybody out there is having a great summer, great week. For sports, for the sports fans, this is a dead period of the sports calendar, to be perfectly honest with you, unless you're somebody who just watches baseball every day. And there are those people out there that watch baseball every day, and especially if you're connected to your team, what have you, there are those people out there, fans out there. They are. But for the casual sports fan, this is a time where you can kind of like tap out from the sports world. Things are starting to slow down with the NBA a little bit. Who knows what's going to happen. We'll talk more about Durant and some of these, and Donovan Mitchell and some guys that could possibly be moved, but those moves might not happen until October, for all we know. So things are going to slow down, like are slowing down, like this week and next week. And again, you'll notice a lot of your favorite sports radio talk show hosts or television guys. You'll notice that some of those guys are taking vacations, or will be on vacation. Not all of them, but there'll be some of them, because they're basically you're a couple weeks from training camp for the most part. For most training camps, you got some training camps starting next week, but most of the training camps don't start till the week after next. So that is where we are at. And plus, no World Cup until November, so we would have been able to chew on that. But this is the, especially when you can get that night where it's All-Star weekend for the Major League Baseball. That those couple of days will be a real dead time for the sports calendar. But what's not dead? The NBA and just the theatrics and shenanigans that come with the Brooklyn Nets and Los Angeles Lakers. They are the gifts that keep on giving. So this weekend, a big deal was made about the NBA Summer League. Lakers, you had a number of Lakers in attendance in the Vegas Summer League, and according to many reports and some video, Russell Westbrook and LeBron James did not communicate visually. Didn't communicate. Now we don't know what happened. Off, when they were not recording. Who knows? But visually, on video, the time that they were there, and it was recorded on that it went and goes viral. They were sitting across from each other. LeBron was doing his own thing. Westbrook was sitting close to the Laker bench, and there was seemingly no communication between the two of them. You saw Westbrook, try to go in and help coach up the guys. Sure, like whatever. I don't know what those, probably 90% of those guys. 90% of those guys probably would not even be on the team. But anyway, but so you saw him there, and I'm gonna kind of defend Westbrook a little bit, because, well, I'm not all the way, but somewhat. I'm gonna defend Westbrook. Westbrook knows that they're trying to trade him, right? Like that. So that is, they are in their worst way trying to trade Russell Westbrook for Kyrie Irving. We know this. We've seen clips of Marks and Rob Pelinka, at the summer league talking. So they've been in communication. LeBron wants Kyrie. Make no mistake about it. LeBron will trade, his first cousin. LeBron will trade anybody to improve the team. Like, that's how LeBron has moved throughout his whole course of his career, especially after, when he started winning championships. Like, that year, 17, 18, when Dwayne Wade was on the team, and it didn't work out in the first half, and LeBron traded about half the roster and they got younger, more athletic, and ended up getting to the finals. So LeBron doesn't care about friendships and what have you, or perceived friendships. That's the big thing here. Like, I think we get this perception of, we get a false perception of how close some of these guys are. And in this world of social media, in this Twitter, Instagram, there's a world that we see these pictures, and you see. I think last summer Anthony Davis got married, and LeBron picked up Russell Westbrook in the Malbec, in the new Malbec, I believe. It was either a Bentley or Malbec. I want to say it was a Malbec, and drove him to the wedding. And they good. These guys are tight. But when it comes down to stuff like this, when it comes down to business, LeBron is a straight businessman. Period. Like he has no emotion when it comes to business, especially if he can improve the team and help them get into contention status. Now, I think they get Kyrie Irving. They're not a contender to me. They're an interesting team and they're a better team, but they're not a contender. It's my opinion. But if you're LeBron James, what else is the other? What is the other move? The only way that they can upgrade the roster is by trading Russell Westbrook. Period. It would be addition by subtraction, in a ways. Now the Westbrook part is, now Westbrook has been in the game a long time. This is going to be his 15th year, I believe. Yeah, I believe year 15 for Westbrook, which is remarkable when you think about it. He understands the game. He's been around a long time. He's seen a lot of things, trades, what have you. He's been traded a number of times. He understands that part of it. But there's a part of Westbrook that, when it comes to things like this, can get kind of sensitive. Kevin Durant leaving him for Steph Curry, whether or not he wants to publicly admit it, bothered him, in my opinion. There's no question that, like, they couldn't. I mean, you wouldn't be a human being. Like there was, again, and that was, and I'll go back to that. There's a perception that those guys were close. You hear Kendrick Perkins a couple of weeks ago, who was on the team, who played with both of them. They actually were not, in his words, they actually were not that close. They didn't hate each other, but they were not as close as what we fans thought they were. And Perkins said that on the podcast. So I don't know just how close Westbrook and LeBron are. You've heard LeBron speak up for Westbrook over the course of the year. He hasn't thrown him under the bus at any time. But LeBron, you gotta watch LeBron in terms of how LeBron moves. It's about LeBron's actions, not so much what he says, but what he does. LeBron will let you know in terms of how he's gonna move with his actions. Period. But I get Westbrook, from a standpoint of, you have to listen to Darvin Ham and this grand plan, knowing fully well, and Darvin Ham is aware of this too, knowing fully well that they're trying to move him. That would somewhat bother me a little bit if I'm Westbrook. If I'm hearing, the team loves me, blah blah blah, so on and so on. The new coach respects me. I'm one great. Russ is one of the best players ever, and all this. You kind of start thinking that it's kind of fake. I'm not saying calling Darvin Ham a fraud. He's saying exactly what he has to say, just in case Russell Westbrook is on the roster come opening night, which is a possibility. I don't think he will be, but that is a possibility. You have to think about that as a rookie head coach, trying to get the best out of the roster that you have inherited, and with some of the changes that they've made. I know they've gotten a little bit younger. They've made some decent moves. I'm not going nothing earth shattering, but they've gotten a little younger. But they are right now they would be a fighting for. They would be like a eighth seed, possibly right now with the current roster, 8th and 7th seed possibly. But they get Kyrie Irving, maybe that bumps up to like a 6th or a 5th seed pot, maybe, if everything goes right with Kyrie and he actually plays basketball. But the bottom line is, again, we don't know just how close these guys are. We just don't. It's impossible to know. And again, the Lakers are going out of their way to move Russell Westbrook. They are trying their damnedest to move him, period. And he knows this. And he knows it. So we'll see what happens. There are a lot of signs that point to that this deal is going to happen. And you got two teams that badly, in the worst way, want those guys off their team. The Brooklyn wants Kyrie Irving off the team in the worst way, and the Los Angeles Lakers wants Russell Westbrook off the team in the worst way. go around the NBA, a couple things that transpired over the course of the weekend, even at the end of last week, that I didn't get a chance to touch on in the previous podcast. So Damian Lillard signs his extension, $122 million, 2 years on top of basically on top of the contract that he already had, which he signed a couple of years ago. I didn't get the exact total to that. I could look it up, but it's a lot of this is a hell of a lot of money. So Lillard, as you see here, is going to make $58 million in 2025. At that point, he will be 36 years old. He will make $63 million in 26-27 season, and at that point, he'll be 37. His guaranteed earning, his career earnings, this is minus endorsements and what have you, is going to come out to $450 million, and he cannot be traded until next July. So he's going to be a Portland Trailblazer this year, period. I don't have a problem with Damian Lillard per se, in terms of him staying in Portland and wanting to win a championship in Portland and not chasing the ring, not jumping on someone else's coattail. I have zero problem with that. There's enough of that going around in the NBA. But let's not kid ourselves. Damian Lillard, yeah, sure, he would love to win a championship in Portland, but he is getting paid he's already signed one super max. This is a max extension. Do not be fooled by the amount of money that's involved with this, and that contributed to him staying in Portland. Please, and by the way, when you've gotten to that level where you're a perennial all-star, where you've been all NBA, where you have been in MVP conversations, where you are going to the Hall of Fame, top 75, you have every right to chase every dollar imaginable, to get every dollar, period. You have every single, I'm not knocking a player at all for taking the money from that standpoint. I just don't want to hear any, if the team under the cheese or if the teams ain't good, I just don't want to hear Damian Lillard. I don't want to hear him make a trade demand. That's all. Like, I don't, now you are 10 toes down in Portland. You said, your family, you love your family. He recently got married, I think last summer, has some kids. He's, loves the community. So you are 10 toes down in Portland. If I count fingers, 20 down, 10 toes and 10 fingers down in Portland, that's where you probably, not definitely, but probably will end your career. So again, if the team comes out and they've made some moves, Portland should be improved next year, but they're not a title contender. We know that. They've made some nice moves. We like Simons, Jelani Grant was a good trade for them, getting him. They made a couple other moves, and so they've upgraded the roster. The roster is a much better roster than it was this time last year. But they are, a middle of the pack, end of the, they're in that 6 to 8 range. I think I don't think they'll be in the play-in, but they're in that 7, maybe even 7 to 10 range. They might be threatening for a play-in. Who knows? They might be in depending on how many guys come back healthy in the Western Conference. They could be fighting for a play-in or fighting for a play-in, but they should probably get to the playoffs. Maybe they'll make the playoffs, especially if Lillard comes back and if he's Damian Lillard, then they will be in the playoffs. Remember last year he didn't play a lot with the abdominal injury, but I need us as a sports, especially as a NBA community, to keep the same energy for Damian Lillard as we did with Carmelo Anthony. For years, when Carmelo Anthony took the money, when he could have, made other moves to, go on title contenders until late in his career, we criticized Carmelo saying, how committed is he to winning? He just cares about the money, and we pounded Carmelo Anthony on that. Well, need to hear that same energy in terms of Damian Lillard, because Damian Lillard is clearly taking the money. Period. It's not just about being in Portland. He's getting paid mega dollars. Like this, like that. That is a super max extension. 2 years, $122 million is a super max extension. And the only reason he didn't get more is because he hasn't been all in. He wasn't all NBA last year. So he is getting as much money as you can possibly get almost as you can possibly get, all things considered. And more power to him. More power to him. I'm a Lillard fan. We know what type of player he is. I'm not calling. There are only about 4 superstars. He's a notch below superstar. He's a franchise player. He's an all-star. He'll be in the Hall of Fame. Not a superstar. Let's not get that twist. Let's not get it twisted in terms of that. But a notch below. But again, he has a right to get his money. He's definitely getting his money. It sounds like he will be in Portland. Sounds like he's gonna. It looks like that. He's gonna finish his career with the Portland Trail Blazers. Bradley, we talked about Bradley Beal's contract last podcast, and just it was under one of our head scratching contracts. We went through that. So a detail came out, I think, a day later, that Bill not only did he get the Supermax, got the 5 years, $251 million. He is one of only 9 players in the history of the sport to get a no trade clause in his contract. Meaning he dictates, if he chooses to go, he will dictate where he's going. Not the teams that want to trade for him, not the Washington Wizards, but Bradley Beal. Now, again, some of the players, it is the list of players with no trade clauses is short. There was a time when the late Kobe Bryant was in the league where he was the only player in the league with a no trade clause. Maybe it was him and Dirk Nowitzki, something like that. It is a exclusive. It is a list of all-time great, some immortal players who have had no trade clauses. Bradley Beal, very good player, has been an all-star. There's no way in the world that Bradley Beal should have that kind of power. It's just like there's no if you're the Washington Wizards, it's like the 251 million wasn't enough. Again, if Bradley Beal would have been on the All NBA team, he would have got the Jokic max. He would have got the same contract as Jokic. 5 years, it would have been 5 years, 264 with a chance to be up and with a chance to be 300 million with some incentives and things of that nature. So he was just, he didn't qualify for the super max, but he is right. That is as close to a super max without being a super max as you will get for a 5-year contract. Making 35% of the team cap space. Of course, he's been with the team longer, been with the team for his entire career. Listen, I just look, you know how I feel about this. That I would have signed and traded Bradley Beal and then started the rebuilding process, because the team that they're putting on the floor is not going to be that much better than the team without Bradley Beal. It's just that Bradley Beal does not impact the winning at that level to where you can put him on any team and that team is a contender. No, Bradley Beal, certain places he could be the second. Could Bradley Beal be the second best player on the championship team? I want to say in today's NBA, no. I would say Bradley Beal in an ideal situation, I think you would want him to be a third best player, to be perfectly honest with you. As I'm looking across the league at the teams who I think are legitimate contenders. So, I would say, yeah, you put him on the Celtics, he's their third best player. The Bucks, he would be their third best player if I switch him from Milton. So the teams that can actually win the chip, maybe with the exception, and by the way, even with Golden State, I wouldn't trade badly. I've said this during the finals, and I'll say this now. I wouldn't move Bradley Beal for Bradley Beal for Andrew Wiggins. No way. There's no way. Right now, I'd rather have Andrew Wiggins on my team than Bradley Beal. Period. So the ideal of giving him a no trade clause, again, if you're Bradley Beal, of course you're going to take that. Of course you're going to take the no trade clause. Of course, what employee wouldn't want somewhat a form of absolute power? He's someone's, his contracts are being signed by ownership, but he has, I mean, like he controls that locker room in essence. So again, I I don't like I do get it because this is how the Wizards move. The Wizards are moving like a team that is just happy that Bradley Beal is willing wants to play for him. So let's do everything to please and keep him just to be what a first round playoff exit or a play-in team. One guy that doesn't have a no trade clause that could be moved before the season, Donovan Mitchell. So today it comes out that the Jazz are open to hearing offers on Donovan Mitchell when previously they said that they're going to use the trade assets that they got from Gobert and what have you to draft capital to rebuild around Mitchell, who is still only 25 years old, been a multi-time All-Star. We still haven't seen the best of Donovan Mitchell. Here's the thing. Like, first of all, it was one of the worst kept secrets. There was no way. Like, if you watched how Danny Ainge moves, you know that he doesn't do half rebuilds. He goes all he either is trying to win the championship, hence the getting Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett adding them to Paul Pierce, or he's completely trying to rebuild the team with henceforth 2013 when he trades Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce with the Nets, which sets them up for the next decade, being able to get Jason Tatum and also Jalen Brown. That's how Danny Ainge works. There's no half measures. There's no in between with Danny Ainge. Donovan Mitchell is going to get moved. Now, there are a number of teams that will inquire about Donovan Mitchell. There are a number of teams, the Knicks and what have you. The question is, I still think Donovan Mitchell can go to another level. Like I still think there's a version of Donovan. There's a version of Donovan Mitchell that we have not seen yet. A guy who has the type of athleticism where he could be a very good defensive player, where he could be a more efficient offensive player with better shot selection. He has been feast or famine in the playoffs. We've had, as a rookie, outplays Paul George and Russell Westbrook. Okay, who are coming off great years, and they upset Oklahoma City when Oklahoma City was favored in that series. The duel he had against Jamal Murray in the bubble a couple years ago, where he was phenomenal. They blew a 3-1 lead, but it wasn't his fault. The defense, of course, fell apart. He's also had some playoffs last year against Houston where you forgot he was even on the court. But again, the potential is still there for him to be a franchise type player. I don't know if he'll ever reach superstar status. I don't know if I think Donovan Mitchell's ceiling is he could be going to the right place. He could be the second best player on a championship team if he's developed correctly. If he puts, again, his work ethic has never been the question, but if he in the right culture, he could be the second best player, I feel like, on the championship team. Now, there are two teams who can trade for him, who I feel like would bring the best out of Donovan Mitchell. One, the Miami Heat. We know about Heat culture. He can go there, and immediately he probably would be there. He can go there and be their second option behind Jimmy Butler. In essence, he would be their third best player because Bam. I think overall Bam Adebayo is a better player than him. With what Bam brings defensively, and of course, Butler, Bam, and then Donovan Mitchell. Immediately they will be instant title contenders. He would develop in terms of, I think that they would develop his game. We know that he developed players who we never even heard of to become rotation players. So you take a player of his magnitude, of his caliber. There's no telling what would happen, of how far he would go playing with the Miami Heat. That's number one. That would be the number one place I think we could see the best of Donovan Mitchell. Two, I would say the Toronto Raptors. Again, another team that has a culture, a championship culture, a great coach. I mean, this is not a coincidence that Spoelstra and Nick Nurse are probably two of the three best coaches in the league. I can make a case the two best coaches in the league, make a strong case that those guys are great coaches, creative, innovative, and those coaches are strong coaches. And again, he probably would be, until Scotty Barnes really emerges, he'd be the second best player behind Siakam. So now, by the way, there's zero chance it came out today that Toronto is not willing to give up Scotty Barnes for Kevin Durant. So there would be a zero chance that they would give up Scotty Barnes for Donovan Mitchell. It just wouldn't happen. They have enough assets with draft picks and enough young talent to where I believe they can get Donovan Mitchell without giving up Scotty Barnes. Like Anunoby, Boucher, draft picks. They have enough. They're loaded with young talent, versatile players, guys that are really built for how the game is played in 2022. Those are the only two teams that I saw that would be perfect fits for him, and in terms of his game and his development, and and with championship coaches. Perfect. I don't like him, and I don't want to see him with the Knicks. I don't want to see him. I mean, some other places. I haven't heard too many other places, but the Knicks that'd be a disaster. It'd be a disaster. No. Like, yeah, he probably would average 30 and the team would struggle to make the playoffs. The Knicks are not bringing out the best in Donovan Mitchell, and I don't think he's going to end up with the Knicks, to be honest with you. So I think the ideal probably going to be Miami. I don't think Miami has the assets to get Kevin Durant. They just don't have enough, especially as comparisons to Phoenix and Toronto. They don't. So I think that I see Mitchell probably going to Miami more than likely. Or don't be surprised if Toronto comes out of the blue and snatches them up. Like we saw what they did with Kawhi. They're not afraid to make it. They're not afraid to make big moves. They're not, they are a franchise that are constantly looking to they're looking to contend this year. So we're going to continue our series. We had a series with the top contenders, Super Bowl contenders schedules. We did Tampa, we did Green Bay. Tampa, I think we did Tampa, Green Bay, Kansas City, the Rams. So we did those teams. Next up, now you can argue whether they're contenders or not. I think they are championship contenders with the roster they have. We're going to look at the Los Angeles Chargers and go week by week. And I'll just give you I had the record on there, but I'm going to give you the week by week and where I think they're going to fall. So they have the 10th toughest schedule in the league. They're non-divisional games. They have host Tennessee, at San Francisco, at Arizona, host Miami, at Indy, at the Rams. They are projected to win 10 games, so they're projected to be a playoff team. And week one, they will host the Las Vegas Raiders. We know what the Raiders added in the offseason with Devontae Adams and some other talent as well. Divisional game, week one. I'll take them with a win in week one at their home stadium. So I have them as at 1-0. Week two, short week, Thursday night game, Prime bit on Amazon Prime. It'll be the first of their coverage as they take over the Thursday night coverage this year. They will be at Kansas City at Arrowhead. I had that as a loss because it's a short week. Not saying they're not as good as Kansas City. They are as good as Kansas City, but I have that as a loss because this is a short week, especially the road team. Like, coming off probably an emotional division game in a short week, that adds to me up to be a loss after to even their record to 1-1 after 2 weeks. Week 3, they host the Jaguars. So the Jaguars will be improved, but it won't matter. They still are still a bad football team. I'll take the Chargers to be 2-1 after 3 weeks against the Jaguars. Week 4, they go to travel to Houston, play to take on the Texans again. I like there are a lot of weak sisters. There are a lot number of weeks. There are a couple of weak sisters in the AFC. The Texans are one of them. I'll take the Chargers to be 3-1 after 4 weeks. Week 5, they travel to First Energy Stadium to take on the Cleveland Browns to the Dog Pound. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. I anticipate that there will be a long, at minimum, 8-game suspension. So I will take, again, the Chargers in week 5 to get off to a quick start to be 4-1 with a win over Cleveland. Week 6, they host the Broncos on a Monday night game. I like the Broncos in this game. I like the Broncos in this game. I think that division that the AFC West is going to be brutal. These are getting 2 teams with different rosters. 6 weeks is enough time that the Broncos will have settled into who they are as a team. So I like the Broncos. That would drop the Chargers to 4-2 on the season. Week 7, they host Seattle. Again, I don't know what Seattle's going to be this year. I don't like Seattle at all this year. So I'll take the Chargers to take out Seattle in a home game, to take their record to 5-2. I'm not high on Seattle at all. All things considering the amount of changes, and we talked repeatedly with Rob Sepp about this on this podcast about. I just think that it's time for Seattle to move on from that, the Pete Carroll, Snyder, that whole regime. But that's their problem. Week 8 is a bye week. We go to week 9 at Atlanta. Again, I think Atlanta is going to be one of the worst teams in the conference. They'll, even though that's on the road, I like the Chargers in that game for a win. So we have them for a win in week 9. Week 10 at 49ers. On a Sunday night. Again, I don't know what the 49ers are going to look at. They have a nice roster. Who knows what the quarterback situation is going to be? I just don't know. If there's a question about your quarterback situation, then let me take the team that has no questions about their quarterback situation in terms of Justin Herbert. So I'll take them in week 10 to take out the 49ers on the road. Week 11, I like them. I don't think Kansas City will sweep them. I like them at home against Kansas City to avenge a early September loss that I have them projected to lose. So they even that. They get the split from Kansas City and win that game. Week 12 at the Cardinals again. Cardinals are one of these teams that can go in either direction. We know they have some talent, but again, we didn't like how their season ended, especially with the playoff game. It's off season. I haven't liked what I've been hearing in the off season. Who knows what the Cardinals are going to be? I'll take the Chargers in this game, even though it will be on the road. Week 13, I have them losing against the Raiders. I don't see them sweeping the Raiders, considering how tough that division is going to be, especially in Vegas. Week 14, tough game against my improved Miami team. But again, I like them in that game as we head towards down the stretch. So that's on my birthday, December 11th. Week on a Sunday, on a week 14. Week 15, the Titans which should be a very interesting game. Again, I don't know what to make of the Titans. I think Titans will be solid, but I think they're coming down a notch. I'll take the Chargers in that game as well at home. Week 16, I think this will be a loss in terms of I think this is a schedule loss, to be honest with you. I think the Colts can be a physical team. Again, I'm not going crazy over Matt Ryan being their quarterback, but the Colts have a very good talented roster, especially at the line of scrimmage. We know how good the offensive line is and how good the defensive line is on how good their defensive line is. So I like the Colts in that game. Week 17 against the Rams. That's the home game for both teams. I had them winning that game. Which should be a very entertaining game with those two offenses going back and forth. And week 18 against the Broncos, I don't think the Broncos. I actually have them. I actually might want to switch that up. I had them. Well, no, no. I had them losing the Broncos. Yeah, they would. Yeah, they'll win this game because I had the. I don't think the Broncos will sweep them, so I had them winning this game. So listen, I'm high on this team. I had them at 13-4, which will definitely be one of the best records in the league. You know, if they go 13-4, they have a chance to get home field advantage without question. They have one of the best rosters in the whole entire NFL. Period. They have one of the best young quarterbacks in the entire NFL. It is a matter of coaching. We know that the coach can try to outsmart the game at times with going for twos and doing just quirky stuff that gets you beat. He is on the clock. The Sean Payton shadow is looming big time in the NFL this year. There are some coaches whose asses are going to be a little tight, knowing that they cannot afford to have, forget about bad seasons, but even seasons where they make the playoffs and you get put out in the first round, that could get you fired and for Sean Payton. Like, I think realistically, the Chargers have to get minimum, I think, to the AFC Championship, maybe even to the Super Bowl. Because you have the idea of Sean Payton with Justin Herbert for the next, 5 to 8 years should be scary for the AFC, for the rest of the league. That could be a possibility. So I think, the coach is going to be on the hot seat this year. I do think they'll be improved this year because Herbert will take a step up. The roster's improved, gotten better defensively. I like what they did in the draft. This is one of the most talented teams in football. Period. Don't get it twisted. This team's going to win a lot of games. Maybe 13 is a bit high, but I definitely see 12. I definitely think they will get 12. I with confidence say that they're going to win 12 games. I have them at 13. But that team is a loaded team. Now, again, I understand. We had expectations for the Chargers in the past, and we know the Chargers have had talent. But again, they have not had a quarterback like this. Okay, this guy is better than Phillip Rivers. Period. This is a generational talent, a franchise guy without question. So that's a game changer to me. They could win the Super Bowl. I wouldn't pick them to win the Super Bowl, but if you told me February 2023 that the Los Angeles Chargers are holding the Super Bowl trophy, would not be surprised whatsoever. We're gonna we added a new segment to our summer podcast edition. Of course, this is the 20th anniversary of The Wire. Of course, came out in 2002. I'm in the midst of rewatching the entire series. I'm in season 4 right now, about 5 episodes into season 4. A couple things. I'm not even gonna get to season 4 because I'm still in the midst of it, of the rewatch. But a couple things I've noticed through the first 3 seasons I've rewatched again for the umpteenth time. The Stringer Avon dynamic really, like, it. We look at season 3 when everything came apart. You can look at the last episode. You can even look at season 2 when they really started showing philosophical differences in terms of what they believed in. And, Stringer wanted to go with Prop Joe, Avon hesitant to give up a tower and what have you. Their split really started in season 1. You go back to after Avon is shot at by Omar and almost killed. Weebay saves him. Weebay shoots Omar in the shoulder when he coming back from the diner or whatever, from the restaurant, from the diner to pick up burgers and cheese fries. You see Stringer say, "Hey, I'm going to, basically, build a wall. We got to build a wall around you, B. So give me that pager. All these local cats, got to get with me. Your sister's gonna handle the money. I'm gonna handle the product. So anybody that needed to get in contact with Avon had to go through Stringer. Now you look at that when it first comes out, you say, "Hey, damn, that's a great number two." Stringer looking out for Avon's best interest, which he probably was. He told Avon, he gave Avon some good advice on how to deal with Omar. Told him not to go head to head, and it almost got Avon killed. So that actually was good advice, and Avon admitted to it being good advice after almost having his head blown off. But the bottom line is, Stringer doing that really created a kind of was the start of his ascension to the top of the Barksdale empire when you think of it. Because now, if you're, drug guys from all over the country, or if you are a connect from New York, you're not talking to Avon. You're talking to Stringer. Talking to Stringer. So that was something that on the rewatch that I noticed as well. Really stood out. Also, the Barksdale money trail with Clay Davis, how that did not lead to them knowing that the towers were coming down in season 3. Like, despite the political connects that they have, the Clay Davis connection, they didn't have the foresight to know that those towers were coming down. And probably, if you have those kind of political connects, you have a money trail where you have state senators, drivers driving out your, taking $20,000 of drug money out the towers. You probably should know, and the angle of they were, involved with the real estate and flipping and trying and buying up all these properties. You probably should have known. And this is how the brilliance of the show. The buying of properties as fronts, B&B, the some of the fronts, the strip club, the different properties that they were buying, the funeral parlor, all these properties they were buying. That's fun. That's well and good, but to me, that showed that Avon never was interested in it, but Stringer really didn't know what the hell he didn't know what the hell he was doing from that standpoint. The print shop stuff, so like these fronts that they had, yeah, they could launder money, flip money, and stuff like that. They be Stringer becomes the bank in season 3, what have you, when they an episode that in this particular episode where Lester and McNulty say he became the bank, he so insulated that he doesn't get near a package. That's all well and good, but again, having those kind of contacts, you got to know that those towers are coming down and being able to prepare and see for the future. That was a flaw that I thought about with the rewatch. So we will, for the next couple of weeks, go through some Wire at 20 reflections, especially as my rewatch continues over the course of this. I'll be done before the summer's out. The way I'm going. In terms of the rewatch, so I'm in season 4 right now. Of course, it only went 5 seasons. So again, to the greatest show of all time, without question, we'll be continuously be talking about looking back at the show and looking back at some things that I had noticed on a 20th rewatch that I didn't notice in the 10th on a 10th rewatch. To the Lost, we lost 2 Hollywood lost 2 Hollywood actors, 2 actors in the last week, James Kahn and Tony Sarico. Want to deal with Tony Sarico first because I got a lot on James Kahn. Tony Sarico, of course, played Paulie Walnuts on The Sopranos, of course, considered one of the greatest shows of all time. It is one of the greatest shows of all time, really set off the golden era of television in 1999. First of all, 79 years old. He before he made I did not realize how much stuff he had been in even before The Sopranos. Like Sopranos came out in 1999, January of '99. He had been acting for about 25 to 30 years, even before that was made. I bounced around, and it was in a number of things that I didn't even notice him being in, whether it be Goodfellas, a couple of my Gotti. He was in a bunch of stuff, but like, mostly mob stuff. He, unlike James Kahn, Sarico never got away from the mob type roles, those type of roles. He never that was his lane. We saw that even with Frank Benson, who recently passed away a few years back. Like some of those guys that's just their lane, and they're comfortable with being in that lane. And they listen, it pays the bills, and they love the roles, and that it is what it is. Um, he was probably my third favorite character off The Sopranos. Like Tony was Tony. I love the character of Junior. Paulie Walnut's probably was my third favorite character. Really, my second, because Tony was on his own level. Tony's in every scene. It was Tony's show in essence. But Junior and Paulie Walnuts, every scene that he's in, the one-liners, the the amount of insecurity that he had, he was just, I mean, just the comedic timing was just brilliant. I mean, it really was. Like, I'm going to rewatch The Sopranos now. I haven't rewatched The Sopranos in a long time, to be honest with you, but probably going to have to rewatch it again. But again, that comedic timing between he and say with him, and when they would do those group scenes together, it would be him and Tony and Chris, and those they have those meetings in the bada bing in the back were priceless. Those scenes with those crew scenes with Paulie, little Paulie and what have you. Those are priceless scenes, and again, I'm sure he probably wasn't in a lot of scenes because The Sopranos has so many characters over the course of the 6 seasons, 6+ seasons. He probably wasn't in that many scenes, but when he was in the scene, he made it count. Period. And again, you look at this IMDb, if I pronounce that right. It's mostly mafia. He also did a number. Listen, he was a working actor's actor. He did a number of voiceover things of that nature, but most of the stuff is mafia related. Like like 80% of his stuff, his work is mob related. So that was the lane that he was in. He was comfortable with being in that lane, and again, that he was a part of I think the best episode written ever in Sopranos history in Pine Barrens. That episode with him and Christopher stuck in the woods with the Russian and not knowing the Russian was still alive. They have no food. The car, the van, whatever they breaks down, and like they're literally stuck out there for almost 24 hours, almost froze to death. And they like that. That was hilarious. That to me, to this day, I think that's the best Sopranos episode ever, in my opinion. Definitely top 5. So, and again, his comedic timing, he would say stuff the character was not smart at all. It was not smart. He was not smart at all. He knew the basic mafia principles, but as far as thinking down, that the whole ordeal when he was trying to not betray Tony, but he was feeding New York information. He thought New York was he thought New York was more friendly with him than he actually believed, and then they flipped on him, turned on him basically. Carmine Senior basically showed him his backhand, and then he runs back to Tony. In essence, that was hilarious. But he just wasn't that smart. But the character was hilarious. Definitely. Again, Tony Sarico, 79 years old. Definitely had one of the more memorable characters in television history, in the Sopranos history. I shouldn't say television history, Sopranos history. As Paulie Walnuts. As far as James Kahn, who was I think 82 when he passed away last week. James Kahn was just a phenomenal actor. Um, I looked at his work minus The Godfather. Now, James Kahn, in contrast to Sarico, did not want to be connected to mob movies his entire career. He went out of his way. Matter of fact, he said it. He only made like 2 mob movies out of like the 60 roles that he was in. Like he did not. He was not in a lot of mob stuff outside The Godfather. That was it. I think the guy. If you look at his, really, The Godfather might have been it as far as pure mob movies that he was in. He just that was something that he made a conscious effort to get away from, because the bottom line is, once you do The Godfather, there's only like you as a, you do The Godfather, there's no turning back. Like The Godfather is going to be, even at the time, he had to know, those actors had to know that they were not going to top The Godfather as far as a mafia movie. You were not making another mafia movie that was going to be on par with The Godfather. It just was not going to happen. So it actually was smart for him to kind of get away from that genre and go do his own thing. So again, his record, if you take out The Godfather, he still has like a ridiculous resume. When you look at, movies like he's in Way of the Gun, Flesh and Bone, there's a number of movies that he, of course, Thief, which was a classic. He was in Elf later on in his career. He was in, of course, Elf. Just, of course, Brian's song. Just a phenomenal, just ridiculous career. Here's the thing that jumped out to me when I did doing some research about James Kahn. The roles that he turned down probably, without question, exceeded the roles that he actually played in. Here are the roles that he turned down: One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Apocalypse Now, French Connection, Love Story, Superman, Kramer versus Kramer. Those, if you look on an AFI list of top 100 movies in the 20th century, I guarantee you all those films will be on that list. I promise you. And these were not bit parts. Like, these were the starring roles. These are like the Kramer versus Kramer. That was a Dustin Hoffman role. Superman, that was a Christopher Reeve role. French Connection, that was the Gene Hackman role. Close Encounters of a Third Kind, that was the Richard Dreyfuss role. Now, the only role that was a bit part, that was a supporting role, was the Apocalypse Now. That was the Harrison Ford role, which, I mean, again, just to be a part of that movie was a big deal. That's considered one of the greatest movies of all time, Apocalypse Now. The Marlon Brando, Martin Sheen, a young Lawrence Fishburne. If you remember, I think that might have been Lawrence Fishburne's first movie, I believe. I think it came out in 79, 78, 79. Just a classic movie. So, and of course, the stories behind it were money related. Like, he won a percentage of certain movies. He won the percentage of Encounters of a Third Kind, one of the Piece of the Gate. Didn't want to wear the Superman costume, so that was he just didn't have wasn't interested in that, and really didn't like the plot to Kramer versus Kramer. Didn't think so but he did make a mistake. He did admit to making a mistake in turning down One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He admitted to making a mistake about that, but he said he did not want to be in 4 walls. Said that would drive him crazy. But that he said he later admitted to making a mistake of turning down that role. But think about the roles that he turned down. Like, that is a who's list of movies, and think about the actors who got those roles. We're talking Dustin Hoffman. You're talking Harrison Ford. We're talking, Jack Nicholson. You are talking icons. So, this guy, James Caan, he was a big time actor. That's all there is to it. I still, loved, again, the Sonny. He and some of his underrated movies. Flesh and Bone was underrated. I actually thought he was good in Eraser. He's a good bad guy. He was an excellent bad guy. I liked him as a bad guy even later in his career. Especially I liked him in Eraser. Flesh and Bone was just he was to go watch that movie. It was I think Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan in that. Maybe it wasn't Meg Ryan. No, Dennis Quaid and I think Gwyneth Paltrow. I think that was that one. That definitely Dennis Quaid. That movie was Flesh and Bone. Go watch that movie sometime. That was one of his very underrated movies. Of course, Way of the Gun, The Bag Man. Just say had a just ridiculous career. Again, had a share of ups and downs. With the drug use, he had went through some depression. I think he said went through some depression when after his sister, his sister died. Talked about it didn't work. Didn't work for a number of years. Was still both of these guys were still working up to their death in essence. Like you'll see some stuff with there'll be some movies coming out next year with both of these actors. So certainly these are guys who were a part of two of the most iconic movies and television series of all time. The Godfather is arguably the greatest movie of all time. The Sopranos, arguably the greatest television show of all time. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Ril Dil podcast. Enjoy the rest of your week. I will see you next time. So long.